When peace feels unfamiliar, restoration begins here. This is P.I.P.E Podcast.
Welcome back to P.I.P.E Podcast. I'm Ann. Today, I want to talk about something that took me years to learn. Trust. Not just trusting other people, but learning to trust myself again. Learning to trust God, and eventually learning to trust life again. One of the greatest things trauma stole from me wasn't just my peace. It stole my trust. I didn't trust people. I didn't even trust myself. And if I'm being completely honest, there were seasons where I wasn't sure I trusted God either. Broken trust changes the way you see the world. For years, I believed most people couldn't be trusted. I believed people would eventually hurt me, disappoint me, leave me, or take advantage of me. When you live through betrayal, abuse, or heartbreak, your mind begins to try to protect yourself. It tells you to keep your guard up, not to let anyone get too close, not to believe the best in people. For a long time, that's exactly how I lived. But the hardest person for me to trust wasn't someone else. It was me. I questioned my own decisions, my own judgment, my own voice. I wondered, how did I not see it? Why didn't I speak up? Can I trust myself to make good decisions? Those questions followed me everywhere. I didn't realize how much fear had shaped my life until I started healing. Fear had convinced me that everyone would hurt me. Fear convinced me that I wasn't enough. Fear convinced me I couldn't trust my own instincts. But God had another plan. There came a point in my life when I was completely exhausted. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I had reached the end of myself. Without pressure, without condemnation, I simply felt God drawing me closer. Not because I deserved it, but because He loved me. I finally became willing to let Him rebuild what had been broken. That didn't happen overnight. I began reading His Word. I began praying for wisdom. I began asking Him to order my steps. And then I had to do something that wasn't always easy. I had to obey. Even when I didn't understand. Even when I was afraid. Even when it felt uncomfortable. Trusting God wasn't one big decision. It looked more like a roller coaster. Some days my faith was strong. Other days my fears were loud. But every time I came back to Him, He was faithful. Little by little, my confidence grew. Not confidence in myself alone. Confidence in the God who was leading me. And the more I trusted Him, the more I began trusting myself. One of the biggest turning points in my healing came when I stopped looking for validation from everyone else. For years, I needed people to tell me I was enough, that I mattered, that I had value. Then I started reading what God had already been saying about me all along. His word says, I am part of a royal priesthood. His word says, I am more than a conqueror. His word says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And something changed inside of me. I stopped believing what other people had spoken over my life. I even stopped believing some of the lies I had spoken over myself. Instead, I started believing what God said about me. And that changed everything. People often ask me, how do you know when God is leading you instead of your fear? For me, it's peace. Fear creates confusion. Fear creates panic. Fear pushes. But God's wisdom brings peace. The more I followed Him, the more His peace became greater than my fears. Do I believe it's possible to trust people again after deep betrayal? Yes, I do. Not because people are perfect, but because God is faithful. I've learned not to put my complete trust in people. I've learned to put my trust in God as He orders my steps. That doesn't mean I'm suspicious of everyone. It means I look for fruit. I look for character. I look for consistency. I've also learned that healthy boundaries don't prevent trust. They protect it. Sometimes loving someone means loving them from a distance. Sometimes trusting yourself means speaking up. Sometimes protecting your peace means saying no. Those aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of wisdom. If you're listening today and you're afraid to trust again, I understand. Maybe you've been hurt. Maybe you've been betrayed. Maybe you're afraid history will repeat itself. Can I ask you a question? What's the cost of staying stuck? Are you willing to spend the rest of your life living in fear? Or are you willing to trust God with one small step? You don't have to trust the whole journey today. Just trust Him with the next step. Looking back now, I wish someone had told me sooner that I was stronger than I believed. I wish someone had told me that my past didn't determine my future. I wish someone had reminded me that I was somebody because God said I was somebody. Learning to trust again has given me the strength to forgive, to love, to hope, to dream again. Most of all, it has taught me that trust isn't supposed to feel painful. Trust isn't supposed to keep you living in fear. Real trust brings peace. Real trust protects your heart. And real trust points you back to God. So today, if you've been doubting yourself, if you've been afraid to take the next step, if you've been wondering whether you'll ever trust again, I want you to remember this. God isn't asking you to figure everything out. He's simply asking you to trust Him with today. One step, one prayer, one act of obedience at a time. And before you know it, your faith will become stronger than your fear. Your peace will become louder than your anxiety. And your trust will begin to grow again. Thank you for spending this time with me today. And remember, what you're connected to will either build your life or break it. Choose faith. Choose peace. Choose wisdom. Choose trust. And most importantly, plug into positive energy. I'll see you next time. Welcome back to the P.I.P.E podcast. I'm Ann. Today, I want to talk to the person who has ever asked God, why? Why did this happen to me? Why didn't you stop it? Why did you let me go through so much pain? I've asked those questions more than once. For many years, I looked at my life and all I could see was the pain, the abuse, the heartache, the disappointments, the loneliness. And if I'm being completely honest, there were seasons when I thought God had abandoned me. I couldn't understand why He allowed so much suffering. I loved Him. I believed in Him. But I couldn't understand Him. Looking back now, I see something I couldn't see then. God never left me. He was there every single moment. When I fell, He carried me. When I wanted to give up, He held on to me. When I couldn't believe in myself, He still believed in the purpose He had placed inside of me. Today, I can honestly say, God never wasted one moment of my pain. Now, let me say something that may surprise you. There was a time in my life when I wished none of it had ever happened. I wished I had never experienced abuse. I wished I had never experienced rejection. I wished that I had never experienced depression. I carried resentment toward God for a long time. Not because I hated Him, because I believed He had failed me. I thought, if you love me, why didn't you stop it? That question stayed with me for years. But healing has a way of changing your perspective. Today, I don't believe God chose the pain for me. I believe He chose me for the pain because He already knew what He had placed inside of me. He knew there would come a day when my story wouldn't just be about surviving. It would become someone else's hope. Do I believe God wastes pain? Absolutely not. I believe God sees every tear, every lonely night, every unanswered prayer, and every disappointment. Nothing, absolutely nothing, escapes His attention. And even when we don't understand, He is quietly building something inside of us. Sometimes we think He's forgotten us because we can't see Him working. But roots grow in places our eyes can't see. A tree doesn't become strong because the sun shines every day. It becomes strong because its roots keep growing through the storms. That's what God was doing in me. He wasn't just healing my wounds. He was building my character. He was teaching me perseverance, teaching me compassion, teaching me faith, but pain changed me. Not in the way I expected. It softened places in my heart that had become hard. It taught me compassion for people whose stories I don't know. It taught me that everyone you meet is fighting a battle that you may never see. Most importantly, it taught me how desperately I needed God's grace. One of the greatest things pain has taught me is forgiveness. Not because forgiveness was easy, but because I needed forgiveness just as much as I needed to give it. Pain taught me to love people I never thought I could love. It even taught me to pray for people who had hurt me. I never thought that would be possible. Only God could do something like that. Looking back now, I realized something else. The places where I was wounded became the places where God gave me the greatest ministry. I used to think my greatest weakness was my past. Now I know my greatest wounds became my greatest strength. Not because I'm strong, but because Christ strengthened me. Everything I walked through has given me compassion for someone else who's walking through it today. If you've ever wondered why your story matters, it's because someone else is praying for the hope your testimony carries. For many years, I believed my story was something I needed to hide. I thought if people knew everything I had been through, they wouldn't see me the same. They would only see the brokenness. They would only see the mistakes. They would only see the pain. But God began showing me something beautiful. The very places I wanted to hide became the places where His light shined the brightest. I used to ask, God, why me? Now I ask, God, how can you use this? That one question changed everything. Instead of seeing my story as something to be ashamed of, I began seeing it as something God could redeem. Redemption means so much more to me now than it ever did before. I believe I was bought with a price. I believe Jesus gave His life so I could truly live. Not just survive, not just exist, but live with peace, with purpose, with freedom. Redemption means so much more to me now than it ever did before. I believe I was bought with a price. I believe Jesus gave His life so I could truly live. Not just survive, not just exist, but live with peace, with purpose, with freedom. For years, I lived with fear. Now, I live with hope. For years, I believed I wasn't enough. Now, I know who I am and whose I am. That changed everything. One of the most beautiful things God brought out of my darkest seasons was teaching me how to love myself. That might sound simple, but for me, it was revolutionary. As a little girl, I never believed I was beautiful. I never believed I was worthy. I felt like the ugly duckling. I felt invisible. I believed the lies spoken over me. Then one day, God began replacing those lies with His truth. He reminded me that I am His daughter, that I am loved, that I am chosen, that I am more than a conqueror through Christ, that I am His workmanship, that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And little by little, I stopped believing the lies. I started believing Him. Now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see the little girl who believed she wasn't enough. I see someone God has been restoring. I see someone He refused to give up on. I see someone He carried when she couldn't carry herself. I truly believe I am one of His crown jewels. Not because I've earned it, but because that's how deeply He loves His children. People often ask me, if you could erase everything you've been through, would you? Years ago, my answer would have been yes, without hesitation. My answer is completely different now. No, I wouldn't erase one single thing. Not because the pain was good. It wasn't. Not because abuse was okay. It wasn't. Not because I would ever want another child to experience what I experienced. I wouldn't. But because every painful chapter became part of the woman God was creating. Every disappointment taught me something. Every lonely night strengthened something inside of me. Every tear watered seeds I couldn't even see growing. Looking back, I understand now. God wasn't absent. He was preparing me. Preparing me to encourage someone else. Preparing me to love differently. Preparing me to walk alongside people who thought no one understood them. Today, my purpose is simple: to reflect Christ, to remind people there is hope, to remind people healing is possible. to remind people their past doesn't get the final word. God does. If you're listening today and you believe your pain has ruined your life, I want you to hear me. Your pain has a purpose. Not because God delights in suffering, but because He delights in redemption. He specializes in taking broken things and making something beautiful. Maybe today, instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What can God do through me because of it?" That question changed my life. One day, your soul is going to look back and you'll stand in amazement. You'll wonder, how did I make it? And then you'll realize it was not your strength. It wasn't your wisdom. It wasn't your determination alone. It was God carrying you every single step of the way. He never wasted your tears. He never wasted your prayers. He never wasted your waiting. He never wasted your pain. And He certainly never wasted you. So don't give up. Keep trusting Him. Keep walking. Keep believing. Because your greatest testimony may still be unfolding. Thank you for spending this time with me today. And remember, what you're connected to will either build your life or break it. Choose hope, choose faith, choose purpose, choose healing, and most importantly, plug into positive energy. I'll see you the next time.
Thank you for sitting with us today, where restoration begins.